At a backyard barbecue, my husband's stepdaughter pointed her finger in my face and barked, "Do your job, maid." I snapped, "Watch your mouth." My husband rushed over, slapped me, and yelled, "You're nothing but a poor freeloader, get out of my house." I didn't say a word. I quietly packed my things and left. The next morning he called me in a panic. For the first time in my life, I heard my husband crying. My name is Claire Whitmore, and for 10 years I was married to a man who believed a house belonged to whoever spoke the loudest inside it. My husband, Grant Whitmore, owned Whitmore Home Solutions, a mid-sized HVAC and plumbing company outside Nashville. If you asked him, he built that business from the ground up with grit, charm, and an old Ford pickup that had more rust than paint when he started. That was the story he liked to tell at barbecues, Rotary Club breakfasts, and church fundraiser dinners, usually with one hand wrapped around a glass of bourbon and the other resting on my shoulder like I was part of the furniture. People loved Grant. He had that easy American confidence some men wear like a leather jacket. Weathered, familiar, just dangerous enough to make strangers trust him. He remembered names, slapped backs, bought rounds, donated to Little League teams, and could sell a nervous homeowner a new air unit before the sweet tea got warm. I was quieter. Not shy exactly, but careful. I listened before I spoke. I read contracts before anyone signed them. I remembered which technician had a sick mother, which customer hated being called before noon, which supplier would extend us 3 days if I asked politely, and which one needed everything in writing. Grant called that office stuff, as if the office was a junk drawer where small things disappeared. But small things keep a life from collapsing. When I first married him, his company had 12 employees, 2 trucks, a part-time bookkeeper, and a stack of unpaid invoices in a shoebox under his desk. By our 10th anniversary, we had 38 employees, 6 service vans, a commercial maintenance contract with 3 hospital clinics, and enough steady cash flow that Grant started calling himself a local business leader. He wore that phrase like a crown. I had no title. At first, I helped because I loved him. Then I helped because the business needed me. Eventually, I helped because if I stopped, payroll might not run, insurance might lapse, licensing renewals might be missed, or some desperate customer might call on a freezing January night and find nobody on the other end who knew what to do. Grant never asked me to quit my job as an office manager at a dental practice. He just kept saying, "Baby, I need you this week," until 1 week turned into a decade. His daughter Madison was 6 when I met her. She had skinny legs, big brown eyes, and a habit of sleeping with one fist closed around the sleeve of my pajama shirt, after her mother dropped her off late on Friday nights. Back then, she called me Miss Claire, and I never pushed for more. I braided her hair badly, packed lunches she sometimes forgot in the car, sat through rainy soccer games, and learned which dinosaur chicken nuggets she considered acceptable, and which ones were, in her words, fake nuggets. For a long time, I thought love could grow quietly enough that nobody would feel threatened by it. I was wrong. As Madison got older, Grant changed the story of our household, not all at once. That would have been too easy to notice. It happened in jokes, little corrections, throwaway lines, he said with a smile. "Claire likes to stay busy. Don't worry, she runs the paperwork. She's good with the boring stuff." Then, after a profitable year, when he bought the house on Oak Hollow Lane and put a stone fire pit in the backyard, the language sharpened. My house? My company? My money. At first, I told myself he did not mean it that way. Men like Grant loved the sound of ownership. Maybe it made him feel safe. But the words soaked into the walls. They soaked into Madison, too. By 16, she had become beautiful in a hard, polished way, with expensive highlights, acrylic nails, and the kind of teenage confidence that came from knowing her father would blame anyone but her. She no longer asked me for help. She demanded it. She left dishes on the counter and laundry in the hallway, then rolled her eyes when I reminded her she was old enough to clean up after herself. Grant always laughed. "She's a kid, Claire. She's under pressure. Don't be so sensitive." That Saturday in June, we hosted the company barbecue. Grant loved those parties because they let him perform success in front of an audience. The backyard was strung with cafe lights, the smoker had been running since dawn, and folding tables lined the patio under red, white, and blue cloths, even though the 4th of July was still 2 weeks away. Employees came with spouses and kids. Neighbors drifted in. Grant's golf buddies stood near the cooler, pretending not to compare trucks. I had been on my feet since 6 that morning. I marinated chicken, chopped slaw, refilled ice, found sunscreen for a technician's toddler, and changed the propane tank after Grant discovered it was empty and announced, "Claire's got it," without looking at me. Around 4, Madison came outside with 2 of her friends. They were dressed like they had wandered into the wrong event. White crop tops, denim shorts, sunglasses pushed into their hair. Madison looked at the food table, then at me. "Where are the gluten-free buns?" I wiped my hands on a towel. "In the kitchen pantry, second shelf. You can grab them." She blinked at me like I had spoken in another language. "I'm not going inside. My friends are here." "Then your friends can wait 30 seconds. Her cheeks flushed, not from embarrassment, but from the insult of being expected to do something herself. A few people nearby went quiet. Grant was across the yard, holding court by the smoker, laughing too loudly at something his buddy had said. Madison took a step closer. She pointed her finger in my face, the way she had seen her father point at subcontractors when he wanted them to feel small. "Do your job, maid." The whole backyard seemed to inhale. For 1 second, I saw the little girl who used to fall asleep against me during thunderstorms. Then I saw the young woman standing in front of me, cruel, because she had been taught that cruelty was power. I heard my own voice come out low and sharp. "Watch your mouth." Madison's face twisted. "Dad!" Grant was there before I could take another breath. He did not ask what happened. He did not look at my face. He did not look at the finger still hanging in the air between us. He just raised his hand and slapped me. It was not the hardest hit in the world, but it was loud. Loud enough that the children stopped running. Loud enough that a paper plate slid from someone's hand and hit the grass. Loud enough that whatever was left of my marriage cracked open in front of everyone. Grant's eyes were wild, but not with guilt, with anger that I had embarrassed him. "You're nothing but a poor freeloader," he shouted. "You hear me? You live in my house, eat my food, spend my money, and now you think you can disrespect my daughter? Get out! Get out of my house!" No one moved. I touched my cheek. It was hot beneath my fingers. For years, I had imagined what I would do if Grant finally crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. I thought I might scream. I thought I might cry. I thought I might tell everyone what I had done for that company, that house, that child. But when the moment came, something inside me went perfectly still. I looked at Madison. Her mouth was open now, and for the first time that afternoon, she looked scared. Then I looked at Grant. "All right," I said. That was all. I walked past him, through the sliding glass door, into the house I had decorated room by room. Paycheck by paycheck, season by season. The kitchen smelled like smoke and lemon cleaner. A tray of deviled eggs sat on the island, untouched. My purse hung on the chair where I always left it. Upstairs, I took one suitcase from the closet and packed like a woman leaving a hotel, not a marriage. Jeans, blouses, medication, phone charger, my mother's pearl earrings, the folder with my birth certificate, passport, and old tax records, my laptop from the desk, a framed photo of Madison at 8 years old, holding a lopsided birthday cake we had baked together, stayed behind. I did not take Grant's money. I did not take company files. I did not take revenge. When I came downstairs, the backyard was still quiet. Through the glass, I could see Grant pacing, one hand on his hip, his face red with the effort of pretending he was in control. Madison stood near the food table, arms folded tight across her chest. I placed my house key on the kitchen island. Then I walked out the front door. My friend Diane lived 20 minutes away in a small brick ranch with hydrangeas along the porch, and a guest room she had been telling me to use for 3 years. When she opened the door and saw my face, she did not ask a single question. She just stepped aside and said, "Come in, honey." That night, I turned my phone to silent and laid it face down on the nightstand. For the first time in years, I did not check the payroll calendar. I did not answer a vendor email. I did not remind Grant about Monday's inspection or the insurance certificate due by noon. I simply closed my eyes. and let the house I had held together stand on its own. I woke up before sunrise out of habit, my body still convinced it needed to beat everyone else to the day. For a few seconds, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling in Diane's guest room, I reached toward the nightstand expecting to see my planner, my reading glasses, and the legal pad where I kept the company's weekly priorities. Instead, there was only my phone. Face down. Silent. I left it that way. From the kitchen downstairs came the smell of fresh coffee and buttered toast. Diane had already let her golden retriever into the backyard, and country music played softly from an old radio on the windowsill. She looked up when I walked in. "You sleep at all?" "A little." She slid a mug toward me without another question. Some friendships earn the right to silence. Diane and I had worked together years earlier before I married Grant. She knew enough about my marriage to recognize that if I had actually walked away, something irreversible had happened. After a while, she finally asked, "You planning to go back?" I looked out her kitchen window. "I honestly don't know." She nodded once. "Then don't decide today." That might have been the wisest thing anyone had said to me in years. At 7:42 a.m., my phone vibrated for the first time. Grant. I didn't answer. A minute later, another call came. Then another. Then a text. "Where are the payroll files?" I stared at the screen for several seconds before locking it again. The payroll files weren't missing. They had never been mine. They belonged to the company. They were exactly where they had always been. What Grant didn't know was how to access them, because he had never cared to learn. By 8 o'clock, another message appeared. "Claire, call me." No apology. No concern. Just another problem to solve. I put the phone back on the table and finished my coffee. Diane watched me carefully. "You gonna answer?" "No." "What if it's important?" I smiled sadly. Everything was always important. That was the problem. For 10 years, every emergency had somehow become my emergency. A technician locked out of a supply warehouse. A customer threatening legal action. A bank asking for documentation. Grant forgetting to renew a license. Madison needing a permission slip signed before school. Everyone had learned the same lesson. Call Claire. Claire will fix it. Around 8:30, my phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't Grant. It was Melissa, our payroll coordinator. I hesitated before answering. "Hi, Melissa." Her voice sounded relieved. "Oh, thank God. Claire, where are you?" "I'm taking a personal day." There was a pause. Then she lowered her voice. "Grant can't get into payroll." I closed my eyes. "He has administrator access?" "I know. He just has to log into the portal." "He says he doesn't know which portal." Of course he didn't. For years, he had proudly told people he stayed away from computer nonsense. He thought that made him sound like a hands-on businessman. It actually meant someone else quietly handled everything that kept 38 families paid on time. Melissa spoke again. "Should I walk him through it?" "You work for the company." "Yes." "Then follow company policy." Another pause. "You mean—" "I mean exactly what I said." She understood. She wasn't asking me because she couldn't help. She was asking because everyone was used to me making difficult situations disappear before anyone noticed them. After we hung up, I felt strangely calm. Not victorious. Not angry. Just free. At 9:07, another call. This time from Linda at First State Bank. I almost laughed. Grant had forgotten there was a quarterly credit review scheduled that morning. Not because he wasn't told. Because I had always reminded him. I let it go to voicemail. 9 minutes later, another call. Our commercial insurance broker. Then the attorney who handled our service contracts. Then 2 supervisors. By 10 o'clock, my voicemail box was almost full. Diane looked at my phone. Holy cow. I shook my head. "They're not looking for me." "What do you mean?" "They're looking for the person who keeps everyone connected." She frowned. "I don't understand." I thought about it for a moment. "Imagine an orchestra." She nodded. "The violinists know their music. The drummer knows his. The pianist knows hers. But if the conductor disappears, Everybody starts playing at different times. Exactly. Grant always believed he was conducting. The truth was, he'd been giving speeches from the stage while someone else quietly kept everyone together. Around 11, Melissa texted me again. Payroll processed late. Employees are asking questions. 5 minutes later. Commercial account can't release funds until Grant signs revised paperwork. He doesn't know what they're talking about. Another. Hospital contract manager wants updated insurance certificate today. Then, vendor suspended this afternoon's equipment delivery until paperwork is corrected. I stared at the growing list. None of these problems existed because I had sabotaged anything. Every deadline had existed yesterday. Every document had been waiting. Every procedure had always required attention. I had simply stopped catching them before they hit the ground. That realization hit me harder than Grant's slap. For years, I hadn't just been helping. I'd been preventing disasters no one else even knew existed. At noon, Diane suggested we leave the house. You need air. She drove us to a little cafe near the courthouse where retired couples lingered over soup and pie. For the first time in months, I ate lunch without checking my email every 5 minutes. Halfway through my sandwich, my phone rang again. Grant. Then immediately again. Then again. I finally answered on the 4th call. I didn't say hello. His breathing filled the line before his words did. Claire. His voice sounded different. Not softer. Smaller. Where are the Johnson maintenance contracts? In the contract management system. I can't find them. You've had access for 6 years. I don't remember the password. You can reset it. Silence. Then, the bank says they need you. They don't need me. They asked for you. They asked for whoever handles commercial lending. Another silence. I could almost picture him rubbing his forehead the way he always did when things stopped making sense. Then he asked the question that surprised me. What do I do? Not, where are you? Not, when are you coming home? Just, what do I do? For a brief moment, I almost answered. Almost. Habit is powerful. For 10 years, hearing Grant say those words automatically made my brain search for solutions. Then I remembered standing in our backyard. Remembered the sting on my cheek. Remembered Madison pointing at me like I wasn't family. No, Grant. What? You'll have to figure it out. Claire. I ended the call. My hand trembled afterward. Not because I regretted it. Because I had never done that before. Diane reached across the table. You okay? I nodded slowly. I think... I stopped. What? I think that was the first time in 10 years I didn't rescue him. She smiled. About time. That afternoon, I turned my phone completely off. Not forever. Just long enough to discover whether the world really ended when Claire Whitmore wasn't there to hold it together. It didn't. But somewhere across town, the first domino had already fallen, and neither Grant nor I yet understood how many were standing behind it. By Monday morning, I had been gone for barely 48 hours. The company was still open. The service vans were still rolling out before sunrise. The phones were still ringing. From the outside, Whitmore Home Solutions looked exactly the same. That was the deceptive thing about foundations. You don't notice them until they begin to crack. I spent the morning helping Diane plant tomatoes in the raised beds behind her garage. My hands welcomed the ordinary rhythm of pressing seedlings into warm Tennessee soil, watering them, brushing dirt from my jeans. For the first time in years, nobody interrupted me every 10 minutes with a problem that somehow belonged to me. At 11, I turned my phone back on. It exploded with notifications. 32 missed calls. 57 text messages. 9 voicemails. I ignored Grant's messages first. Instead, I opened one from Melissa. Can we meet? Just for coffee, off the clock. I answered with a simple yes. An hour later, we sat in a quiet coffee shop downtown, the kind where college students worked on laptops and retirees solved crossword puzzles by the window. Melissa looked exhausted. I wasn't sure you'd come. I almost didn't. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. The office feels different. How? She searched for the right word. Like everyone suddenly realized how much they don't know. I didn't answer. She continued. Grant keeps asking where everything is. It hasn't moved. I know. He keeps saying the systems are too complicated. They're not. They're not, she admitted. They're organized exactly the way you built them. I smiled faintly. I built them so anyone could follow them. She looked at me for several long seconds. That's the thing. What? They can. I frowned. What do you mean? Everyone knows their own part. The payroll process. The dispatch schedule. The maintenance renewals. The licensing calendar. We all know our own jobs. She hesitated. But nobody knows how all of it connects. That sentence stayed with me. Because she was right. I had never tried to become indispensable. Quite the opposite. Every spreadsheet, every checklist, every calendar reminder existed, because I wanted the company to survive without depending on one person. But there was one thing I had never managed to delegate. Judgment. When two deadlines collided. When a technician called in sick. When a customer threatened to cancel. When the bank wanted additional documentation while payroll had to clear before noon. Someone had to decide what mattered first. That wasn't written in any manual. Melissa sighed. Yesterday, Grant spent 45 minutes yelling because dispatch couldn't find an invoice. It was in the cloud. I know. He was searching the filing cabinets. I couldn't help laughing. Not because it was funny. Because it was painfully predictable. Grant always believed the solution to confusion was volume. If something didn't work, he spoke louder. If someone disagreed, he spoke harder. He had spent years believing confidence could replace competence. Melissa stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. The technicians are nervous. Why? They've never seen him like this. What do you mean? He isn't leading. She lowered her voice. He's reacting. That was a dangerous difference. Leaders make decisions before panic spreads. People in panic chase one emergency after another until everything feels urgent. Grant had entered that second stage. Before we left, Melissa reached into her purse and slid a folded piece of paper across the table. I probably shouldn't give you this. What is it? A list. I unfolded it. Every item represented something that had gone wrong since Saturday. Commercial insurance renewal delayed. Hospital maintenance contract awaiting approval. Equipment supplier requesting updated purchase authorization. Vehicle registration missing documentation. Quarterly tax review postponed. 3 customer complaints. 2 scheduling conflicts. Emergency overtime approvals pending. None of them alone could destroy a business. Together, they formed a slow-moving avalanche. I handed the paper back. No, she blinked. What? I don't need it. I thought, I know. But if I take that list, you'll start fixing it. I nodded. And that's exactly what can't happen. Melissa looked down. I think everyone expected you'd come back Monday. So did Grant. Are you? I looked out the cafe window. Across the street, an older couple was walking hand in hand toward the courthouse square. They weren't in a hurry. They weren't arguing. They simply looked peaceful. I don't know. It was the truth. I wasn't staying away to punish Grant. I was staying away because I still didn't know whether I wanted to return to a life where my value depended on how many disasters I prevented before breakfast. That afternoon, I finally listened to Grant's voicemails. The first one was angry. Claire, stop acting ridiculous and call me. The second was impatient. The insurance people need information. The third sounded tired. I can't find the renewal folder. The fourth was different. I talked to the hospital administrator today. His voice cracked slightly. They said they always worked things out with you. A long silence. Then another message. The bank asked for you. Another. The attorney asked if you were coming back. Another. The supplier said they trusted your judgment. Each voicemail peeled away another layer of certainty. Not because people preferred me. Because they had quietly built professional relationships with the person who consistently solved problems. Grant had always assumed those relationships belonged to him. Now he was discovering they had trusted the work, not the title. Late Tuesday afternoon, another call came. This time from Eric, our senior service technician. Eric had been with the company longer than Grant and I had been married. He almost never called me outside business hours. "Hey, Claire?" "Hi, Eric. I just wanted you to know—" He stopped. "What?" "The guys miss you." "I miss them too." "It ain't just that." I waited. "You know what everybody's saying?" "No. They're saying this place feels mean now." His words caught me off guard. "Mean?" "Yeah. Nobody's smiling." "Everybody's walking on eggshells." "He keeps blaming people." I closed my eyes. Grant had always blamed outward before looking inward. When I was there, I quietly absorbed most of that frustration before it reached everyone else. Without realizing it, I hadn't only been managing operations. I'd been protecting people. Eric cleared his throat. "I probably shouldn't be saying all this. You've earned the right." He chuckled sadly. "You know why I stayed 15 years? I figured it was because Grant paid well." "Nah." "So why?" "Because every time my wife got sick—" "You made sure I could leave early." He continued before I could answer. "When my truck broke down—" You loaned me yours." "When my daughter got into Vanderbilt—" "You organized that surprise bonus." I had forgotten half of those moments. To me, they had simply been the decent thing to do. Eric's voice softened. "I don't think Grant even knows you did any of that." "No, he doesn't. I don't think he ever asked." After we hung up, I sat alone on Diane's back porch until the sun slipped below the trees. For years, I had believed my work disappeared the moment it was finished. A payroll processed. A crisis avoided. A contract renewed. Invisible work. Invisible woman. But maybe kindness leaves records no spreadsheet can track. Meanwhile, somewhere across town, Grant was finally beginning to see what everyone else had quietly known all along. The company hadn't been running because one man stood at the front. It had been running because someone, unseen by almost everyone, had spent 10 years making sure everyone else could do their jobs. And now, for the first time, that invisible foundation was gone. Wednesday morning, I found myself standing in front of my bedroom closet at Diane's house, staring at two blouses as though choosing one over the other might somehow answer the questions that had been following me since Saturday. Neither one did. I picked the blue one anyway. Diane glanced up from the newspaper when I walked into the kitchen. "You going somewhere?" "I have an appointment with my attorney." She smiled faintly. "Good." "I feel guilty." "You shouldn't." "I know. But I do." She folded the newspaper carefully. "Claire, guilt is what decent people feel when they stop allowing themselves to be used." That sentence followed me all morning. My attorney, Rachel Donovan, specialized in family law. She had represented 2 women I knew through church, both of whom had spent years convincing themselves they were overreacting. Rachel didn't ask whether I wanted revenge. She asked practical questions. "Do you have copies of your financial records?" "Yes." "Were you paid as an employee?" "No." She looked over the rim of her glasses. "For 10 years?" I nodded. She sighed. "We'll talk about that." When the meeting ended, she handed me a folder. "You don't have to make every decision today." "I'm not trying to destroy him." "I know." "Then what am I trying to do?" Rachel answered without hesitation. "You're trying to stop disappearing." I drove away with those words echoing in my head. By the time I reached Diane's driveway, my phone was ringing again. This time it wasn't Grant. It was Frank Ellis. Frank owned Ellis Mechanical Supply, the company that had supplied Whitmore Home Solutions with equipment for nearly 15 years. I answered. "Frank." "Claire." His deep voice carried the weariness of a man who had spent decades running a business. "I hope I'm not bothering you." "Not at all." "I heard what happened." News traveled fast in small business circles. "I appreciate the call." There was a brief silence. "I need to ask you something." Go ahead. Are you coming back? I looked toward Diane's garden. I honestly don't know. Frank exhaled slowly. I figured, why? Because if you're not... He stopped. I'm changing our credit terms. That surprised me. You've trusted Grant for years. I trusted your judgment for years. I didn't know what to say. Frank continued. Whenever Grant promised something, I waited to hear from you. If you confirmed it, I knew we'd get paid. I knew the numbers made sense. I knew somebody had actually checked the order. I leaned against the porch railing. You never told me that. You never asked. After we hung up, I sat quietly for several minutes. Grant had always believed respect came from confidence. Again and again, people were showing me something different. Respect came from consistency. Late that afternoon, another unexpected visitor arrived. Melissa. She looked even more exhausted than she had the day before. I know I shouldn't be here. You can come in. She sat at Diane's kitchen table while I made iced tea. I almost quit today. I turned around. What happened? Grant. She rubbed her temples. He spent 20 minutes yelling because nobody could find the revised hospital contract. It was in the digital archive. I know. He said someone must have deleted it. Did anyone? She shook her head. It was exactly where you labeled it. I couldn't help smiling. What? He never learned the filing system. She laughed once. No. He never tried. Her smile disappeared almost immediately. Claire. What? I need to tell you something. I sat across from her. Yesterday, the hospital's facilities director came in. My stomach tightened. Okay. He asked where you were. What did Grant say? He told him you'd taken some personal time. And? Melissa hesitated. The director looked at Grant and said... She swallowed. Well, I hope she comes back. She's the reason we've renewed that contract every year. The room fell silent. I stared at the condensation running down my glass. I never negotiated those contracts. No. You built the relationship. I remembered dozens of early morning meetings, handwritten birthday cards to office managers, checking in after storms to make sure their buildings were safe, solving small problems before they became expensive ones. None of it had seemed extraordinary. It had simply seemed professional. Melissa looked down at her hands. There's more. I braced myself. The technicians had a meeting this morning. Was Grant there? They asked him not to be. That caught me completely off guard. What? They wanted to talk privately. What about? She reached into her purse and handed me a folded sheet of paper. I know you said you didn't want documents. What is this? Read it. I unfolded the page. 34 signatures. Every field technician. Every installer. Every dispatcher. Every office employee except Grant. At the top, someone had typed a single sentence. If Claire Whitmore is not treated with the respect she deserves, we cannot promise this company will keep the people who made it successful. I read it twice. Then a third time. They did this? Melissa nodded. Nobody asked them to. I didn't. We know. They're angry. I don't want them quitting. They're not trying to hurt the company. They're trying to protect the person who always protected them. My vision blurred. Not because of the signatures. Because I had spent years believing no one noticed. Apparently, they had noticed everything. That evening, as the sun settled behind the trees, my phone rang once more. Grant. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, he said quietly, I went into the office today. I figured. I found a letter. What letter? The employees. I closed my eyes. They signed it. Yes. His voice sounded hollow. I didn't know. What? They respected you like that. I said nothing. I thought... He stopped. I honestly thought they stayed because I built a good company. I waited. They stayed because of you. The admission sounded as though it physically hurt him. Another long silence stretched between us. Then he asked a question unlike any he had asked before. "Claire." "Yes?" Was I really that blind? I looked out across Diane's backyard. The tomato plants we had planted 2 days earlier were already standing a little straighter. Sometimes all living things needed was room. "I don't think you wanted to see it." His breathing caught. "I don't know how to fix this." For the first time since I had walked away, I believed him. He wasn't asking where a file was, or how to reset a password, or which customer needed calling. He was asking something much harder. How do you rebuild trust after spending years tearing down the person who quietly built your life? I didn't have an answer. Neither did he. And perhaps that was exactly where true accountability had to begin. Grant did not come to Diane's house that night. For that, I was grateful. There are moments in a marriage when a person finally says the right thing, but the wound is too deep for the right thing to become a bridge. His question stayed with me long after the call ended. Was I really that blind? The honest answer was yes. But blindness is not always an accident. Sometimes people close their eyes because seeing the truth would require them to change. The next morning, I met Rachel again. She had reviewed the financial records, the mortgage documents, the tax returns, and the years of unpaid labor I had poured into Grant's company. She did not look shocked this time. She looked prepared. "You have options," she said. "I don't want to ruin him." Rachel leaned back in her chair. "Claire, divorce is not ruin. Accountability is not cruelty. Taking your lawful share is not revenge." I looked down at my hands. "Then why does it feel like I'm punishing him?" "Because you spent 10 years believing his comfort was your responsibility." That landed somewhere deep. By noon, Rachel filed the initial paperwork. Nothing dramatic, no screaming in a courtroom, no secret fortune revealed, just a legal line drawn where emotional boundaries had failed. Grant was served that afternoon. He called once. I did not answer. Instead, I drove to a quiet walking trail by the river and sat on a bench beneath a maple tree, listening to cicadas hum in the heat. For the first time since Saturday, I let myself cry, not because I missed the life I had left, but because I was finally grieving the woman I had been inside it. That evening, Madison texted me. "Can we talk?" I stared at those 3 words for a long time. Then I wrote back. "Tomorrow, public place, 30 minutes. We met at a small ice cream shop near her high school. Madison arrived without makeup, wearing an oversized sweatshirt despite the heat. She looked younger than 16, younger than the girl who had pointed at me in the backyard. She sat across from me and twisted a napkin in her hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I waited. "I know that's not enough." "No," I said gently, "it isn't." Her eyes filled. "I found emails." "What emails?" "The ones about my summer program, and the scholarship forms, and when Mom forgot to send my medical records for camp. I remembered all of it." She swallowed hard. "You did all that?" "Yes. And I called you a maid." The word hung between us, ugly and small. Madison began crying, not loudly, but with the helpless shame of someone finally seeing herself clearly. "I thought Dad was the one who handled everything." "I know. He said you liked doing that stuff." "I did like helping you." She looked up. "But not being treated like nothing." I said nothing, because she needed to hear herself say it. Madison wiped her face with her sleeve. "Are you ever going to forgive me?" "I don't know." Her face crumpled. "But I hope one day I can." That was the truth, not punishment, not a performance, just truth. 2 weeks later, Grant asked to meet me at Rachel's office. He looked different when he walked in. Not physically exactly, though he had lost weight and his shirt hung loose at the collar. It was his posture. The old Grant entered rooms like applause was already waiting. This Grant looked for a chair before his legs gave out. He sat across from me. No bourbon confidence, no loud voice, no audience. Just a man and the consequences he had earned. "I'm not asking you to come back," he said. "Good." He nodded, accepting the blow. "I thought I built everything." I looked at him calmly. "No, Grant, we built it." His eyes reddened. "The difference is, I never needed everyone to know." He covered his mouth with his hand. For a long moment he could not speak. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry." I believed he meant it. I also knew sorry could not unring a slap, unteach a daughter's cruelty, or return 10 years of invisible labor. So I said, "I hope you become the kind of man who never makes another woman prove her worth by leaving." That was the closest thing to mercy I had left. The divorce took 6 months. I received a fair settlement, including compensation tied to my role in growing the business, and Grant kept Whitmore Home Solutions, though not the empire he had imagined. He sold the big house on Oak Hollow Lane, moved into a smaller place near the office, and hired an operations manager at a salary that would have made him furious if anyone had suggested paying me the same 5 years earlier. Several employees stayed, some left. The company survived, but humbler. So did he. Madison and I did not become mother and daughter again overnight. Life is not that neat. But once a month, she asked me to meet for coffee, and sometimes she told me about school, college applications, and the slow, uncomfortable work of becoming kinder than the house that raised her. As for me, I opened a small consulting firm helping family-owned businesses build systems that did not depend on invisible sacrifice. My first client was a widow who ran a roofing company with her 2 sons. My second was a bakery owner who had not taken a vacation in 12 years. I taught them what I had learned the hard way. If one person is holding everything together, the business is not strong. It is standing on a person no one remembered to thank. People sometimes asked if I got my revenge. I did. But not the way they meant. I did not burn Grant's life down. I simply stopped standing inside the fire with a bucket in my hands. And when I walked away, everything he had built on my silence finally had to bear its own weight. Sometimes revenge is not destruction. Sometimes revenge is letting the truth walk into the room after you leave. If this story touched something in you, I hope you'll remember this. Never mistake quiet loyalty for weakness, and never take for granted the person who keeps your world from falling apart. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, please subscribe.